Thank you, everybody, for having me. My name's Liisa Niemi. I'm from south of Boston, Massachusetts, and I am delighted to be able to give this Betsy McCall presentation to you all. Most of the time, I collect antiques, French primarily, but I do have a couple of other passions, Betsy McCall being one of them. And after I finish with the slideshow, I'll show you why I was so taken with Betsy McCall. By day, I work a regular job. I work in corporate America. I work in the advertising industry. And I also do doll repairs. I buy and sell on a couple of venues. And my favorite thing to do there is to fix bisque. I'm a bisque restorer. So that's what I love doing, taking dolls that would be in the trash and and getting them back to some semblance of normalcy looking so they can go back to a new owner or their existing owner. As far as UFDC goes, I belong to the Boston Club. I also belong to the Granite State Club, which is New Hampshire. I belong to the Doll Doctors Association. I belong to the BJD, Best Friends Forever Club down in Maryland. And I belong to DCA, Doll Clubs of America. So I've got a lot of clubs and things that keep me very busy. So very excited about presenting to you all. As far as this presentation goes, I gave it to the national group last year. If anybody was there, I did it then. And Robert Tonner was in the audience, and I was a nervous wreck because I do talk about his dolls, and I want to make sure that I was accurate, and he loved it. And he loved my slideshow. So I'm going to go there. This is a picture of me. I think it was in 1965 or no, 1964. I was maybe 4 or 5 years old. And this is with my Betsy that I got for Christmas, and I still have her. So she is one of my treasured dolls. I have all of the dolls that I ever owned going back to my childhood. I never gave them away. So she is one of my prizes. This little doll here is one, and I'll tell you the other story when I show some of the other pictures. I got this one in 1968. I wanted a Betsy so bad, one of the little ones, but I was able to find this one at a Christmas church fair, the church bazaar, for 35 cents in about 1966. And she's got the red ballet outfit, and she is a treasure. And I have her sitting right next to me over here. So on this page, it just kind of shows you the outlines of the things I'm going to talk about, the origin of Betsy. I'm going to show a few of the paper dolls because that's how she started out. And then the dolls themselves, some of the main manufacturers, including Robert Tonner, as I mentioned. And then a little bit about clothing, accessories, and patterns, sewing patterns. So she started out as a paper doll in the McCall's magazine, and I probably don't have to tell any of you that. You're probably like me, I looked forward to having my mother get the magazine and immediately tore the pages out. My sister and I fought over them, and they weren't Xerox machines back then. So we used to fight over the magazines. This was probably starting in the 60s, but she started out in the early 50s and went through the 90s. The little girl herself lived near New York City, and if you think about some of the different adventures she had and some of the depictions of places and things in the paper dolls, a lot of them are city things and cultural things, and it makes sense that she would live near New York in order to do those. As far as the artwork goes, they were drawn by various people. Kay Marcy was the one that started the first ones from primarily the 50s. And then the longest time frame was Ginny Hoffman, and I love her faces and love her depiction of Betsy. And then the later ones, I was too old to really look at them by that point, so I had to do a little research to find them, but there was a gal named Sue Shanahan who did them. You could also send away for them in the mail, and I did that too. And I bought the ones in the 60s for a quarter. And she had little cousins, and they were introduced in select editions of the magazine. And her mom and dad are also featured in select editions. It's fun to see them over time because you see the fashions for kids over the decades, and it's really cute. But she started out in the early 50s. That's the point in that magazine. So this is a little bit on the paper dolls. So there were themes, and she did different things, and you kind of looked forward to seeing what she was going to do the following month. And they kind of went along with either the seasons or the holidays. And this is just a calendar that came in one of the editions. There was holidays, there's things she did with her family. I mean, as I mentioned, the culture and the arts. They also used the magazine, of course, and the paper doll to advertise clothing and McCall's patterns, sewing patterns. They used Betsy in the magazine to announce different real plastic dolls that were coming out. There was some charity like UNICEF and scouting that were also featured in some of the paper dolls, and later on the STEM, which is the girls in science and technology. Here's some examples of the really early Betsy paper dolls. And you can see your dad and the one on the left and her mom on the one on the right. And she's going visiting and doing things. And they usually featured a picture of the little girl and then some kind of outfits and accessories she was wearing with a theme. And she's got her cousin Barbara on the one on the far right. And they have kind of coordinating outfits. So she's going shopping, she's going to the beach, and there's a little story that goes along with it. So these are just absolutely delightful. So these are the early ones from the 50s. And here's a few more. She goes to the beach again. This one, she gets a doll, and she's saving for a savings bond. So there's some other educational opportunities that McCall used in the magazines to teach children about saving and what that was all about, financials. The 1960s one, this is when the artist changed, and you can see that the dolls look different here. The one in the middle in the red tights is, I have her in my paper doll collection. When I remember cutting her out when I was about 7, and I love that face. I just think it's the cutest face. So here she is. She's visiting the Festival of Roses on the left. She's got a Christmas one in the middle with her skating. And then she meets the doll. So this is one of those advertisements for the actual doll. She has one there, and she's playing tennis and doing other stuff. Here's a few more. What's she doing in this one? She visits Leonard Bernstein. So she's going to the symphony in New York City. She goes to dancing school in the middle one, and they also using that opportunity to introduce the 22-inch Betsy McCall ballerina doll. And on the right-hand side, she's going over the river and through the woods to visit her grandma. And I just love the detail in some of these outfits. They were very well done and well drawn, as well as clever. Is some later 1970s. I have this one on the left. I have that same hairdo, and this one's got her the little twins, the little red haired twins. She's doing trick-or-treating and trick-or-treating for UNICEF in the central one, and then she's got a UNICEF play over on the right. So there's a lot of focus on philanthropy and charity and other good values to instill upon kids. So they not only get a paper doll, they get a little lesson and some values added onto it. In the 1980s, they changed a little bit, and they're starting to get into things like sewing and activities. And then she's going flying on the right. So she's getting more adventurous, and she's getting the Christmas tree and setting up the tree and doing things on the left. So the stories are getting a little bit longer. So she's having adventures, and if you're playing with the paper dolls, you can probably act out the adventures, which is fun. In the 90s, I don't care for these ones at all, but she got a little bit abstract looking, and this is when the artist changed again. She's decked out for the holidays, and the one on the left, a little bit punk rock looking, in my opinion. And then the hippie-ish looking outfit, and the one in the center. And then the artist changed again. The little gal on the right looks much more like a photograph. and there's some activities and things to do there. There's games and things as well as just the story. So this is it on the magazine paper dolls. Then you could send away for some of them, or you could buy them at the store. And I remember my mother used to give my sister and me each like 50 cents to go get paper dolls while she was grocery shopping at the Woolworths. And so we'd look for the Betsy McCall paper dolls there. And this one in the center I have, and I remember buying that at Woolworths. There's ones you could send away for, and commercially made ones. Of course, they had a lot more clothing and other accessories that went with them. And then the one on the far left here, 1968, that I was 8 or 9 there, and that one had a artist theme. The one in the middle is a little bit more mod, and then the one on the right is one of the ones you could send away for, and I have these set too because that's the one you could send away for a quarter. So a lot of children's clothing were featured in a lot of these to spur the mom to maybe, I want to make my child this outfit so she can match her paper doll or whatever. So this is just a quick, I like to do timelines. If you've ever heard any of my presentations before, I love to do timelines. So this is one of the magazines had the evolution of the Betsy McCall paper doll over time from the 50s to this one. This went to the 80s. And then this is what I did for the kind of flat looking with the plain face. And then she gets cuter. And then there's more elaborate add-ons and accessories for the paper dolls in the 70s. And then they moved to quarterly because I guess she started going out of favor. Kids weren't playing as much with paper dolls. And then it was once a year. And then there was more activities and games and puzzles as opposed to just the paper doll itself. And then in the 90s, they tried to bring her back. So it's nice to see how she's maintained pretty much the same. It's a cute little girl with dark brown hair, and her hairstyles pretty much stayed the same over the years. Now we get to the fun where we play with the play dolls. So the first one was from Ideal, and some people like the face, some people don't like the face, but she was created in the early 50s as a doll with a purpose, and that purpose was typically sewing and teach kids about fashion. And the some of the dolls had a whole kit where you could make an apron for the child and a matching one for the doll, and they were on the Tony Bond. And she looked very much like the paper doll. Then we have the American Character, and these are the ones that most of the people knew. American Character was a toy firm that was formed right after World War I, and it stuck around for a long time till the late 60s, and then it went to Ideal. You can see who the owners were, and then which dolls they introduced when. This 8-inch little tiny Betsy McCall and the 14-inch one that looks a lot like her were the first ones to be made by American Character in the late 50s, and they were made to the early part of the 1960s. The flirty-eyed one that was a little bit bigger was introduced in 1959, and she was sort of short-lived. The 22-inch one that I showed, the ballerina one, and was introduced in 1962. And then a larger one that had like a lot of jumpers and things. She was also made in 1962. And then the gigantic Patty Playpal one was made in the late 50s. So American Character made these dolls in multiple sizes. And they kind of all looked similar, but each one had its own charm. So the 8-inch Tiny Betsy, I like to talk about this aspect of them because there were so many of them were made, and they were made for quite a long time. The earliest dolls, they call the first year dolls, are different from the second and further on year dolls. So I want to talk a little bit about them. But the Tiny Betsy is hard plastic. Her head swivels and turns. Her body is kind of thin, so she's not like a Ginny. She's probably a little bit older child. She has jointed knees. Some of the Ginnies do, and some of them do not have jointed knees. She's got lots and lots and lots of costumes. You can click her thighs to sit her down. And she was introduced to compete with Ginny in the late 50s. And she was also used to help advertise kids' fashions and patterns. She has the classic rubber Mary Jane shoes, slightly different style than the ones that Ginny's wore. She had those nylon or rayon socks, those shiny socks. And she had the basic page boy hairdo, like you see in my little dolly on the right. But there were variations on that, with some had flips and some had side parts, etc. And the little aluminum hairpins kept her hair out of her eyes, and they were on the left and right side of her face. So the early dolls, just so that you know what you're looking at when you see them, if you don't already know, the first year dolls had a mohair wig on a cloth backing. And don't worry, I'll show you some pictures of each of these. So it's a cloth skull cap that's glued to the plastic head. They had plastic pegs in the knees that held the knees in place and allowed them to bend at the joint. The face itself was smaller, even though the head's the same size. The features are closer together and smaller. And they came in multiple hair colors. And the original little underwear set called a teddy was white lace. So that's the typical first year doll. The second and beyond did not have mohair. They went to the saran hair. So you can see this shiny synthetic hair like my doll has here. Instead of the plastic pins through the knees, there's now a metal rod, which found out to be a lot more sturdy. The coloring is a little darker and more vibrant. They also came in multiple hair colors. And the teddy underwear was like a organdy with flowers on it. So that's how you can kind of tell the difference. But I'll go through some examples here, because these are the most plentiful dolls and the ones I think are the most popular. So these are some pictures of the first year doll. The knee joint had these plastic pins in on the side, and they were prone to breaking. They were very fragile, flimsy, I guess you call it flimsy, and they'd break right off. I have a doll that had just masking tape around it, and you could tell that masking tape was holding the knee together for decades. This is a picture of the white teddy. This is also in it. Another feature is the thing that happened to them is the crotch split. The joint inside the thigh is kind of oval shaped, not round. So when you have to click it past a certain point to get the doll to sit. And when you do that, oftentimes it puts enough pressure on the body so that the body splits and you get this crotch split effect, which can be glued and, reinforced back together again with pressure and clamps and things like that. But the other feature, you can see this is not synthetic hair. This doll also has mohair. This one has mohair hair. This one has mohair hair. Shiny, lot finer. This is what they call a transitional doll. She's got the plastic pins in the knees and stuff and the face, but she's got saran hair. So this is and the other thing about them is there's usually one eyebrow that's a little higher than the other one. See that? That's the telltale sign, is one of the eyebrows being higher. And then our second year dolls, you can see the ones that have this raised up bangs, the saran kind of goes back to where it wanted to be when it was first off the spool. And so you get this high bang thing. You can see the rubber skull cap underneath there. That's what they are on. So all of these dolls are second year dolls or beyond. They also will have the crotch split, but you can see here there's a lot more variation in the hairdos. There's the flip under, and there's the flip over, and the flip under. And they had, this one would be like a mint in the box doll with the box. And some of the boxes were flowered like this, and some of them, if they were from Montgomery Ward's or Sears, they were a solid pink or blue color. So here's a little bit more on the face comparison. This is the first year doll here with the raised eyebrow. This one's got straight. There's a few other, the eye placement. These ones are further down on the face. It's slight, it's subtle, but it's evident if you can look at them compared side by side. I think people like the first year dolls because I think they were painted by hand. The second and beyond were painted with a stencil, so they're not as they're much more uniform. So here's some clothes. They came with it. They you could buy separate little clothing outfits for them. The clothes had names and they were very cute. There's the on the ice one a lot of people have, the braid one, the schoolgirl one, the couple of different ballerinas, the red ballerina and the pink ballerina and the green ballerina. There's sometimes there's variations on these, and some of them are really, much more rare than others. But just as of course, when you buy one of the outfits, they've got all the advertisements on the back for the ones you also could buy. And here's some of the boxes on the front side. Some of them were in a blister pack like this, and some of them were in a box. Few features of their clothing. They always had the piping on the undies. They were satiny and they had piping on the undies and elastic zigzagged on the waist. Usually the outfits came with shoes and a hat. There was a lot of felt that was used for the skirts and things because you don't have to hem it. It doesn't ravel. And this funny kind of velour, I don't know what you'd call it. It's kind of a flocked fabric that, again, you don't have to hem it. And there was some outfits that had a satin scarves with them, or I guess you'd call it. It's like a nylon, a very thin nylon. And they had suitcases. They called them pretty packs, and they came in different colors. And the vinyl ones are like these white ones and pink ones. And this is a kind of a cloth with cardboard. I've got a couple of these ones. And it holds dolls and clothes. And there were plans. You could have your dad make the dollhouse. She had her own mid-century modern dollhouse, which I thought was really cool. I never had one. I had a Barbie house, and my Betsy's lived in the Barbie house. But this is really cute. If I ever can find this pattern, I'm gonna make the house. So she had her own little house. And there was furniture. I think it's Strombecker was the name of the company. And she could use Ginny furniture as well. But I mean, I love this table, the mid-century modern kidney shaped table. It cracks me up on the square couches. So she had furniture to go in the house. Okay, so this is another American character. This is the 14-inch one. And she looked a lot like the other one, the little 8-inch one. And she had a lot of the same outfits. She had this evening gown. She had the birthday party one. And she had this town and country one. I think that one's called the coat with the dress underneath and the little tan hat. She's also got a very, very sweet face, a similar hairdo, but she's a bigger doll, and she was more soft plastic, not as hard, and you don't see the body splitting as bad as you did on the small dolls. So she had the Tosca hair, she had this red-haired version and a dark-haired version. Then there was this 18-inch one, which is similar face to the 14-inch one. And her eyes kind of go back and forth. So she open and close and flirty eyes. And her costumes, she had fewer costumes, but they were fancier. So look at this. This one's a lovely, all original doll and original costume. And she had the birthday party one and the ballet one and some of the others. And she had pretty hats and the shoes and the works. Similar hairdo. Then we had the bigger one. This is my doll right here. I still have her, and she's the one that I got for Christmas that year in 1964-5. And this is the 22-inch one. She had more jointing because this one was a ballet girl. So she had movable hip joints. She could move around the waist. She could move her ankles and the wrists. You could see there was more jointing. She's also, her head was soft plastic and her hands were, but the rest of her, I think her arms were soft plastic, but the rest of it was hard, hard plastic. And she came in two hairdos, this flip with the bangs, and she came in kind of a pixie haircut. Very cute. Then there was this big one, which is the 29-inch one, very similar face to the one I just showed you. And she's a little bit older child. She's got a little bit of a ladyish shape. She also can move her hips and has the same kind of multiple jointing that the 22-inch one had. And she didn't have as many hair colors because there weren't as many of them made. But you can see this beautiful all original hairdo on this one. Then there was the gigantic one, the Patty Playpal size one. This is supposed to be Betsy here, and she's got her cousin Linda, and she's got Sandy, I think that's her other cousin. And these were gigantic and were meant to compete with Patty Playpal. So these are all supposed to be Betsy too, and made by American Character. There was a lot of advertising that were done with these dolls and displays at toy stores and department stores. This was a display that showed different Betsy's in the different outfits. And the one in the center was the one that was, that's how you could buy her that way. You could also buy her in these outfits, or you could buy the outfits separately. This is a skating outfit, the bride outfit, the birthday party. Oh, that's Sunday Best, it's called. This one's called, it looks like Cotillion. And can't read when that one says, but the very lovely displays. And there was also advertising done in the magazines. So this is the Betsy doll on Christmas, and wouldn't you love to have one too? And this one did this co-advertising with the Tony doll. And this, of course, is the 18-inch Betsy on the stamp. Moving on from American Character, there are other manufacturers who made Betsy McCall, and this one is the Unita Betsy McCall. Not terribly pretty, in my opinion. She was very 60s looking, and she wasn't made for very long. And you can still find these from time to time on places like eBay. I don't have one of those, excuse me. But she does have, charming little face. And the next one with some other people that made them. This one is the Rothschild one. And it looks a lot like Ginny or Tiny Tears. Maybe that's why it didn't sell very many. And this one, I think, is the Laramie one, the Tommy Laramie one. Again, she doesn't look very Betsy McCallish to me either. She looks like a Madame Alexander. And then this one here, I don't know what the heck they were thinking. This is the Horseman doll. She looks like an adult. Doesn't even look like a kid to me. But that was their version of Betsy McCall. And then there was this other one, Betsy McCall Goes to Winter Carnival. She was short-lived as well. So there are a few other people that tried to take a stab at depicting Betsy McCall in a doll form, but they weren't terribly popular. So now we come to Robert Tawner. And I think we all know Robert Tawner. Robert introduced his version of the Betsy McCall in 1996. And this one is initially made out of porcelain and had painted eyes, I believe, and very, very pretty, very sweet face, and very closely resembled the original paper dolls. And then he moved to the plastic version, or plastic or resin hard plastic. And the face is slightly different, but she's got open and shut eyes. There are tons and tons of outfits, and this one caught on big in the 90s. So she's about 14 inches tall, and you can see how this outfit resembles the Town and Country outfit that the old Betsy had, and this looks like the birthday party outfit that the old Betsy had. So he did a really good job at trying to capture the style and the look of the 1950s and 60s dolls. He also introduced a tiny Betsy, which is the 8-inch one. And this one looked a lot like the 8-inch Betsy's that I was showing with the body and everything. And I think his don't get crotch splits because he's changed the design of the hips. And they came in multiple hairdos, multiple skin tones, multiple eye colors. So there's a lot more variety, and they were made for about 10 years, and you can still get them on online, etc., at doll shows and the like, and they're very cute. They came as just a doll. They came as a set. You can see this one was a gift set, and you could buy all kinds of accessories, etc., for them. He also made a 29-inch Betsy, and this is his 29-inch Betsy, the big one, that looks very, very much like the one from the 50s. Very, very close, and the body is almost identical. So he did a really good job at depicting this one. And she had multiple hair colors, multiple hairstyles, lots of outfits, and the costumes are just impeccably made. Robert does a great job with everything he does, but these dolls were, especially in a large scale size, very, very well made. Next, we'll move on to sewing patterns. And I'm a sewer, and I have been ever since I was a kid. So I have a lot of the patterns here, and this could have been me making my doll clothes at 7 years old on the sewing machine. But this is probably a pattern that a lot of people have. This instant one with the dress and the circle skirt, the poodle. There were other costumes that were made, and some of these patterns were in various sizes because, as you recall, the Betsy's came in different sizes. So this one, I believe, came in the 8-inch and the 14-inch, as did this one. This one came in 22 and 25 and 29. And the green dress that my Betsy was wearing, that I was holding on the first page of this deck, is wearing the dress this one here my mother made. She made all these outfits for my Betsy, and I have them all in a suitcase over there. So these are just some of the costumes you could buy in the 60s and 50s. And then there's more. There were a lot of patterns ready for the Tonner Betsy McCall 14-inch. There were, let's see, some of these were, this one says 14 and 16. So these would fit the larger of the two small Betsy McCalls. There was like a rag doll you could make in a small size and a big size and a medium size. Then there was a pattern for Betsy McCall's dog, Nosy. It was a dachshund. And there's a little kitty cat too. I made that. I think I made that one. I was about 10. The Nosy dog. So here's the sources that I used. One of the most wonderful sources is this Betsy McCall Collector's Guide book, the red book that by Marcy Van Osdol. She wrote a very comprehensive guide to all the Betsy outfits and spent a lot of time on the American character dolls. When she wrote the book, Robert Tonner's stuff was just starting to come out, so she has a little chapter on his, but there weren't that many chapters on that. It's a wonderful book if you're a Betsy aficionado and want to learn every little ins and out about the variations on the costumes and why and which ones are the rarest and all that stuff. So that book is great. It's hard to find and expensive, but it's worth it if you can find it. And here is me with my doll again. And this was me last year with the Betsy, the same Betsy. Little worn, hair's a little faded, but she's still here.
And both photos are so beautiful. Wow. Really incredible.
The same hairdo.
Oh, yes. Love it. Love it.
A lot changed in 60 years, so.
Well, not too much. Doesn't look like too much.
Here she is in all of her glory. There she is. I was always careful that I didn't have any runs in her tights and stuff. Her face is a little dirty, but she's 60 years old. I also have the 20-inch one, which is the one with the flirty eyes. She's cute. She doesn't have that many outfits, but she's kind of like sissy-ish. And so that's her. She's got some great costumes. I have a few of these 14-inch ones. I love the face on this one. I got this one in the ballet costume, the redhead. And I got this one, a little simple frock. I don't have a dark-haired one. That's one on my bucket list. And I have this little one with the party outfit and just lovely, just lovely shoes and the works. So the one story that I'll tell you guys. Back in the late 1950s, my mother and father got married. And my Aunt Christine, who was 6 years older than me, was the flower girl in the wedding. And my mother gave her a Betsy McCall doll for being the flower girl. And this is it. And my Aunt Christine, when she got to be like in her teens, she wouldn't give it to me. She stopped playing with the doll and she wouldn't give it to me. So I coveted it and coveted it and coveted it for decades. I wanted that darn doll, especially since it had been my mother gave it to her. So when I was 10, as I said, I went to the church fair and I found the little red ballet one for 35 cents at the church fair. I still have her. I still have her. And later on, my aunt gave me the doll. I have it. So this was something my mother, who is no longer with us, gave to my Aunt Christine, and now I have it. So she's an absolute treasure of mine. So I have one more thing to show. I have a case, one of the cases, and they're just full of, little Betsy's in the costumes, some of the rare costumes. And some of these dolls I got from one of the Theriault auctions. Marcy Van Oz dolls, she sold her doll collection. So some of the dolls, even though they're the lesser of her collection, they were hers. So a number of the dolls in that case belong to her, that author of the book. So I've got some rare costumes, like the skis that go with the ski outfit, the little pots and pans that go with the cooking outfit. Those are the first thing you lose. Great. I was really pleased to be able to get them. So I got 3 of these cases full of little Betsy's. And it's one of those things, like, I didn't have a Betsy and I wanted that one for my aunt. So I hoarded them, Once I got one, I just had to keep getting them. One of those obsessions. I didn't have it as a child, so now I'm going to have all of them. I don't know if anybody can relate to that, but that's the only doll I've ever done that with. You can never get too many Betsy's. So I love them to pieces. I have a couple of the toner ones as well, but I really like the faces on